Physiognomy, or the art of face reading, is the ability to look at people's faces and get a deeper understanding of who they are as a person simply by looking at their face. In Chinese face reading, as well as in any practice of physiognomy, every line, wrinkle, birthmark, and mole on your face, and every single feature on your face can actually reveal a lot about you. So in today's video, I want to take a look specifically at the face of Clive Davis. Similar to the time that I read Jeffrey Epstein's face, I'm going to be taking a look at the face of Clive Davis through face reading, because Clive Davis has recently passed away. He's in the same pile as Jeffrey Epstein, let's say. So because of his evil nature, or what I believe to be his evil nature, I do not want to channel his energy. I do not want to be a channel for anyone who is evil. Therefore, rather than channeling the energy of Clive Davis to get more insight into the man himself, I'm just going to take a look at his face, and we'll do a little face reading on Clive Davis today. And this will give us insight into who he was as a person, but it will also give us practice in the art of face reading. When I went to Google Images to search up some images of Clive Davis to take a look at his face, one of the things that I noticed right away is that Clive Davis was a habitual sunglasses wearer. I noticed that he was always wearing tinted glasses. Clive Davis, while he wasn't always wearing sunglasses, he actually wore sunglasses more than most people, because I noticed Clive Davis would be wearing sunglasses whether it was daytime, nighttime, or whether he was inside or outside. So that stood out to me. And it also reminded me of his friend, Diddy, who does the same thing. He's constantly wearing sunglasses, whether it's daytime, nighttime, whether he's inside, outside, or at a party. And I believe that there is a reason for people like him and Diddy, people like Clive Davis and Diddy, to be wearing sunglasses so habitually. And it is to create a spiritual barrier between themselves and the people they are interacting with socially. Many people, including myself, use sunglasses regularly to protect from UV damage to your eyes, for instance. But people like Clive Davis wear sunglasses regularly, even when it's nighttime or when they are indoors, because the eyes are the window to the soul, and they are creating this sense of mystery and mystique by wearing sunglasses and creating that spiritual barrier so they can gaze at you, but you can't gaze at them. Does that make sense? The second thing I noticed when I was looking at Clive Davis's face was that his eyes are crooked, and so is his chin. So I immediately kind of connected that with a misalignment with his own spirit, because the symmetry of his face is a little bit off. Not hugely off, but it was off just enough that it was the next thing I noticed after the sunglasses. And I even Googled the spiritual significance of having crooked eyes. And one of the things it said was that This trait, having the crooked eye, is a dual focus ability, a psychic blind spot, or even an emblem of elevated spiritual perception. And I found that to be very interesting because if you watched my Whitney Houston channeled tarot and oracle reading from 2 years ago, or even the one that I just did last week about her relationship with Clive Davis, then you will know that it is my belief that Clive Davis was highly connected to the spiritual realm, but it was almost a misaligned connection to the spirit because Clive Davis wasn't connected to the Christ consciousness or, the power. He was more connected with manipulation and mass mind control and doing rituals in the physical world that could also translate into power in the spiritual world. But this is the type of power that is manipulation and trying to control others. So it's a negative expression of this connection to the spiritual realm. And therefore, it is seen through the crooked eyes. And when I noticed that the chin line on Clive Davis is also crooked, I realized right away that that would somehow be tied to his expression, the way that he expresses himself. And so when I looked up the crooked jaw, or the crooked chin, I noticed that this could signify that the person is navigating a very complex karmic path, which obviously makes sense to me when it comes to the crookedness of his spirit coming out as crookedness in his actual face. So I ended up pulling out a few images from Google Images of Clive Davis's face from different angles and hopefully different ages so that we can get a closer look at who this man really is by checking out his face. So let's just go ahead and start at the top on Clive Davis's forehead and work our way down from there. Starting with Clive Davis's forehead, the shape of his forehead and hairline is very rounded. So this extremely rounded or domed forehead shows a strong sign of creativity. Now, this doesn't mean that he necessarily has to be an artist himself, but in the work he does in his life, he does bring a sense of creativity into it. And so considering his work in music, this is definitely true of Clive Davis. You have to be very creative in order to put the right songs with the right people and the right opportunities and kind of bring it all together in a cohesive way. So that makes sense to me for the shape of Clive Davis's forehead. Now, with this rounded forehead, it means strong creativity, but it also means that you'll probably feel very unsatisfied with your life unless you are able to let those creative juices flow in some way. So I feel as though if his creative endeavors ever do go awry on him, that would be a cause for him to be very unsatisfied, very angry possibly over things not going his way in his creative endeavors. And moving to Clive Davis's ears, right away I noticed that he generally has some very long earlobes. And long earlobes show that the person would have wisdom and they have this long-term planning ability. So someone with these long earlobes, because of that vision for the future and being able to plan for something that is not seen in the moment, that is this kind of wisdom is talking about. So when it comes to Clive Davis, you can see that definitely expressed in his career, his vision for, whatever direction he wanted things to go. But you can also see this kind of weird wisdom and long-term planning when it comes to trying to manipulate the masses and when it comes to, ritualistically gaining spiritual power over people as well. And I did find an image that showed the right angle to indicate to me that Clive Davis has an earlobe that actually pulls away from the ear rather than one that is attached like mine. So the earlobe would have a little bit at the bottom that would pull away from the side of the face. And from the looks of it, Clive Davis does have that style of earlobe that pulls away from the side of the head. And that actually shows your ability to be separated from your family and close connections. So Clive Davis, because of that earlobe that pulls away, is it's easy for him to separate himself from people that he claims to care about. Someone who has those very puffy upper eyelids would indicate that that person has a strong talent for investing. And that could also indicate a talent for saving as well. But specifically for Clive Davis, he invested money, he invested in people. So definitely he had a talent for investments in multiple different ways. Now the bridge of Clive Davis's nose is pretty broad from what I could tell through all of his different glasses. And so this broad bridge of the nose shows that there is a lot of energy that comes through him. So that to me makes sense as well, because his career lasted all the way pretty much to the end of his life. And so he had a plentiful supply of energy to keep going. And now in taking a look at Clive Davis's eyes, he has a very pointed inner canthus area, which is the inner part of the eye. His is very pointy. So that would actually indicate a person that has a very sharp tongue. I noticed that Clive Davis has a pretty pointed nose, tip of his nose. And so that pointed tip indicates a very curious nature in a person. But kind of on the other side of that, that curious nature could also lead to a tendency to be less naturally trusting of people. And so I think in Clive Davis's case, he probably was very curious and tried to understand the people he was working with, but at the same time, he had difficulty in trusting them. I also noticed that his pointed nose tip also hooks downward just a little bit. And so that downturned tip of the nose reveals kind of a shrewd nature in a person. And so that downturned nose that kind of covers part of this, part of the upper lip, shows that the person has skill again with investments. So he was definitely born with this natural ability to understand the, investments and saving and that kind of thing, because that's the second indicator that we have just in his eyes and his nose. In looking at Clive Davis's lips, I noticed that he has a pretty thin set of lips, but his lower lip is, to me, a little more noticeably thicker than the upper lip. So someone who has a thicker lower lip will show that they have a potential to overindulge in things from time to time. So with that little indicator, while he may be good with investing and things like that, he can also be known to overindulge. Clive Davis has those plump lower cheeks on either side of his mouth, where there's just a little more thickness on each side. Now, these plump lower cheeks are what is known as money bags. So these particular puffy lower cheeks, these money bag cheeks, are a very important reservoir of wealth that you can see on the face. So this is a sign that you can actually attain and you can hold wealth. Now, people with these plump lower money bag cheeks can also have a tendency to overindulgence because they're very earthy, sensual, and they like the good life and they like to live it while they're here. So While this could be an indication of wealth and abundance, it could also be an indication of overindulgence. I noticed that with that crooked chin, he also has a small cleft in his chin as well. So, with the cleft chin, that indicates a person who has a strong desire to be seen and recognized. So, that would explain why he would be the type of guy that would continue to throw his Grammys party in the same hotel with Whitney Houston's body and party with her dead body for 9 hours because he can't say no to honoring himself. That covers pretty much all of the facial features that really stood out to me on Clive Davis's face that I wanted to cover today. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think that physiognomy, or the art of face reading, did a good job in exposing the man who is Clive Davis? Let me know your thoughts down below. Be sure to click the like button if you like this video, and go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you like content like this, because I'm always posting new content each and every week. Thank you all so much for being here and spending your time with me. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.